I guess the best way to do this is to just dive in and start talking. Um, my name is Marvette. I'm 44 years old, and I am recording this with the intention of sharing, I guess, just the process that I'm on right now, the growth and development that I'm going through. I started a blog in December of last year with this same intention. And while I do like writing, I think that video and actual physical content can be easier to express yourself. With writing, sometimes I'm too caught up and worried about the structure and the grammar and how the message will come across. Whereas with video, I think it's easier to convey exactly what you're trying to say in your own voice, of course. Um, I was questionable about what I would like this first video to be about. I didn't know if I wanted to do a full like bio introduction or to just speak on a topic that I wanted to get out. Um, when I started my blog, it was with the message of getting the thoughts out that I have in my head so much. I'm pretty contemplative and I read a lot of material, listen to a lot of things, and of course, I have perspectives and ideas that form around those things, and then just living life and just insights that I gain and gather just from day to day experience, and also being introspective and reflective of my life and the things that I have experienced. I recently started working with a relationship coach. I've only had 2 sessions, so it's very new. But I think that is where I want to start my share because while I've done a lot of work in the past, I would say 5 to 6 years, and I've definitely gained a lot just from reading on my own and studying different things on my own and willingly exposing myself to different ideas of thought and material and information, wisdom, knowledge. I always say there's a difference between knowing something and actually implementing it into your life and incorporating it into how you live. And then things becoming applicable as you learn them. So while I feel like I've definitely done a lot of growth and expansion just from getting the information, there has been some lacks in always applying and doing the work that comes with the information that I've received. Um, just like knowing certain techniques and modalities to use and to practice that could better help me grow and I guess understand myself better and be more intentional and present and aware. And I did the relationship coach because it happened to be a colleague of mine who I know. And I had finished a morning meditation, and the thought I had was, I really want to work with someone, and I really want to work with someone around relationships because I was starting a new relationship and I really wanted to start it not just from the space of being in it, but wanting to understand it as I was growing in it. And that very same day after I had that thought, I went downstairs and started talking with this colleague and found out that she is a relationship coach and has been doing that for the last 20 plus years. And I always say sometimes, the universe is immediate. It just, you ask and it's right there for you. So it took me a while to actually give her the call and get started with the process. But now I am in it, and the reason I want to share, and it's a little like, even though I'm in it and it's very new, I'm comfortable with sharing it as it happens in real time for me, because I think for me, that's the way that I want to offer whatever this becomes. It's not meant to be prescriptive or necessarily advice. It's an offering to say, this is what I am doing, this is my experience. And if anyone can find it relatable and it resonates, and it may give you the opportunity to gain insight, or maybe the thing that you see how it works with me and for me, say, oh, well, maybe this is something that I can explore and try out for myself. I guess my main thing and reason for doing this is, you know, there's just something innate in us that when we find things that we see as useful in our lives, we naturally just want to share it. Um, and this is something that I've been wanting to do and trying to figure out the exact way that I want to do it. Like I said, I started the blog and I'm doing this now. I don't know what else may come from this. I don't have any particular ambition or goal or you know outcome that I want. I just want to give it because this seems like what I am supposed to be doing with my journey. I was listening to a podcast, and I can't think of the rabbi's name right now. And he had the quote, like, if you're gonna go through hell, you should at least learn something from it. And that's what I think all of this is. Anything that you go through and you can see where there's growth and improvement and development in your life, that you offer the possibility of that to someone else. So, in my first session with my colleague and relationship coach, we went over some things, and she brought me back to a moment that um, she asked me to find a moment that I thought, was relevant. What did I want to get out of the coaching? What was something that I thought had been big and influential in my life that may have shaped the way that I experience relationships with self, with others, and with life in general. And I always had this thing that I came back to that I would think of sometime, and I don't think I gave it the relevance and significance because I just hadn't thought of it in the way that, looking at how it may have shaped me and my behaviors. Um, but when she asked that question, that was one of the first things that came up. And so that's what I shared. And it was an experience of being 8 years old, and we had just moved into a new area. I'm in a new school, and the incident seems so, to my adult mind and to other people's adult minds, I would imagine trivial, but with the understandings that we have now, behaviors and patterns, and how the psyche works, and how, our personalities and identities are shaped, we understand that so much of who we are and how we experience life happens in those childhood stages. So I relate this incident of being eight, starting a new school, and doing a spelling test in school, and how when the teacher presented that we were going to do a spelling test, for some reason in my 8-year-old mind, because it was a new school and I didn't understand how it operated, that I thought that we were expected to just do spell the words on our own without any further guidance. And how I got out my pencil and paper and I started spelling the words and trying to remember how to spell them from memory, and and how that experience felt. And so when I told her that she had us do a word association, like what in that moment, what emotions and beliefs were created. Because, it's like we live our lives based on our belief systems and patterns. And it's like, what belief system was created for you in that moment? And so the word association was men are, women are, life is, I am, therefore I will. And at that time, it was men are, and she kind of gave me a prompt because I really couldn't think of anything. And she was like, "Were there any men around?" And I was like, "No, not really." It's just from what I can remember in my mind. And so it was like, men are absent, women are comfort. That was mine. Life is uncertain. I am scared. Therefore, I will have doubt and fear and anxiety or uncertainty. I can't remember all the words from the first session. Um, and at the end, she gave me the prompt of writing a letter to that 8-year-old girl, what I would have wanted to have someone say to me in that moment to make me feel more secure and stable and whole, I guess. And so I did that. And when we had our last session, I read the letter, and I'll read it now. Because I don't mind sharing it, and just so that it all comes through. Writing the letter, I wrote it, then I went back and read it, and even in the writing of it, things came out that I didn't realize that I was experiencing in that moment, at least in the terminology. Of course, at 8, you don't have the same terminology and you don't have the same understanding. And you don't understand the emotions necessarily that you're feeling because at 8, it's either good, bad, happy, sad. The nuances of like anxious or disappointed or, just all of the words that we learn as we grow older to express how we feel. So, writing the letter and then going back and reading the letter even brought out more that I was able to dive into right like after I wrote it. So it was like letter to the 8-year-old me. It said we moved the year I turned 8. That's how I keep my timeline straight. Timelines of things that happened to me. Everything is either on the farm, which is where we lived before I turned 8, or after the farm, and I had just turned 8 and we moved. And I know it was I had just turned 8 because It was right before Christmas that year, and I remember as we were moving into the new house, finding presents in one of the boxes. I don't remember if this was, and this is me talking to the 8-year-old me, so I'm talking in like first person. I don't remember if this was your first day at the new school or if you had been there a few days, but I know it was very early in the transition. You are in second grade, Miss Marva Johnson's class. She tells the class, we're about to take a spelling test. And for some reason, in your 8-year-old mind, you think you have to do the words from memory. This must have been a few days in, I realize as I write this, because you knew the words. You took out your pencil and a sheet of that pre-dotted and lined paper and began trying to write all the words from memory. So you don't have to just know how to spell the words. You got to remember them all as well, and you never tried to memorize them. Of course, you began to cry. I remember holding my head low to the desk so no one would see me, trying to cry silently, tears streaming, dropping onto the paper, nose running, wiping my tears away, feeling so alone and lost and less than. You were so absorbed in the pain and misery you didn't notice you were the only one trying to write these words. Then Miss Johnson says, okay, class, I'm going to call the words for you to spell, or something to that effect. And there's a sense of relief. Now you can spell all the words and get them correct. Because you had always been smart, you liked to read, so spelling wasn't difficult for you at all. But though you feel relief in that moment, something else happens as well. You are shaken and you don't know it. Some part of you that day shrinks and it makes a weak spot and portal for everything that follows to shrink you more and more. Before this, you were always so confident and self assured, precocious and assertive. You were very comfortable as yourself. And while that would remain partially true immediately after, the crack was there, and over the years it would widen to become this jagged, bleeding wound. You would try to patch and heal it, but so many things would keep ripping the bandage off, sometimes re injuring it and making it worse. Your idea and perception of yourself was shook that day. And though you didn't consciously recognize it, you began to doubt yourself and feel uncertain about life. Because, of course, you felt relief when you realized you had created this challenge in your mind. There was the whisper of ridicule and judgment that you could make such a mistake and assumption. But, baby girl, you were 8 years old. You had just moved. You were in a new house, a new neighborhood, and a new school. You had just turned 8, so you were really still 7. You didn't know how things worked. Nothing was familiar. The house you were in was so different from the one you had left. The neighborhood was huge and paved, and there were streets with constant traffic. You didn't know anyone. You were alone in a class full of strangers. You were the new kid. It's okay that you didn't know. It's okay that you cried. It's okay that you were scared and you didn't want to be seen as not smart in this new school. Everything you did was okay. You are still that assured, confident, smart, happy, bright, precocious, assertive girl. You don't have to believe any of the whispers that started that day. You are okay just as you are, and I love you very much. So when I read that back to myself, um, a part that stuck out for me was the being smart part. Because even at 8, I realized that was a big part of my identity. I didn't consciously think about it at that time, but like I said, I was loved to read, and I think I had always been seen as smart in school. And that would follow me in certain ways, and I'm sure I'll talk about that later. How that part of my identity, shaped a lot of my behaviors that had influence on me. So I read this letter back to my coach, and then we went through it, and that's when after reading the part I wrote to myself about what I would have wanted to have said to me at that time, we did the word association, and actually first she wanted to replay that scene, and to and asked me what would I have liked to have happened at that time. So she played the teacher, I played myself, of course. And so she's like, okay, class. We, went through the whole spiel about taking the test. And then she stopped me, and she's just like, Marvette, what are you doing? And I explained, you know, I'm trying to write the words. And she was like, no, no, you don't have to do it from memory. I'm going to call the words. And, but she was like, but that is really, um, you took great initiative, and wow, you really tried to remember all of those words. And oh, look, you had written out however many at that time. And, wow, that's great that you were able to do that from memory. And just her giving me that different perspective just changed so much. I was like, I never thought of it from that perspective. What I saw was how could you be so stupid? How could you misunderstand? How could you make such a mistake and an assumption? When I look back at it, I never like criticized myself this harshly, but it was there in my mind. I know when I thought, because I would just think about it, sometimes just shake my head and just like roll my eyes. And I never went into a dialogue about it, but there was that subconscious dialogue, that quiet, silent dialogue that I think was happening in the background of those words of like what I just said. And when she said, and she was like, that little girl was so smart. That little girl was so, had such initiative. And look how hard, look how much she wanted to spell the words correctly, and that you were able to remember some of them, and that you knew the words, you just couldn't remember them all, but you knew if you just had the words called out that you would be able to spell them correctly. And I never thought of it in those terms and in that light. And so, with her, the whole thing is about rewriting your story, um, re changing your belief systems. What was created for me in that day. And like I said, when we did the word association, like life is uncertain, I'm scared, um that therefore I will have doubt and uncertainty and anxiety and be anxious. I can't remember all of those words because even when we had the second session, I couldn't remember all of what I said for that last prompt. um but I definitely recognize that in that moment what happened, because I think it fed over the years my indecisiveness. Um, like when I may have to make a decision about something, like I think about it not all the time, but sometimes like the most simple things. If I'm out shopping, and I'm looking at products and I'm comparing, and it's like I'm trying to figure out, okay, do I want to do this thing or that thing? You know, I get so caught up in overthinking whether or not to do something or how to do something sometimes. And I think it definitely stems from that moment of like, am I am I doing this right? Is this really what I need to be doing right now? Is this really what's happening? Just processing and assessing what's right in front of me, and if I'm going to make a good decision or not. I think part of that stem not just from that, but I definitely think that set the foundation for that in me. So So after we did that exercise, and especially with her showing me a different perspective of how she interpreted it, she's like, I'm impressed by that little girl, and just how proud she was of her. I had never thought of it in those terms. I had never seen it from that perspective. So we redid the word association, and we did the right. So it's me and R. And at the time, I couldn't think of another, so absent stayed in. But that just doesn't sound right to me anymore. So I've changed it to men are beautiful. And I'm sure that'll come out later in future videos. Women are comfort. That stayed the same, because even in that, Miss Johnson became one of my favorite teachers, and I enjoyed being in her class, and she was just very comforting and very supportive and loving. She was a great teacher. Life is an adventure. I am smart. Therefore, I will be able to meet any challenge. And I really felt that when we did the rewrite, when we did the prompts again. And so I've been saying that over and over and over, because, when you develop a belief system, from the moment that it develops, you believe it. It's a belief system, and it follows you until something happens that changes it. And so I've had that in me for 26 years. I was 8 years old. So I've had that belief system as part of me for, I'm sorry, 36 years. For 36 years, trying to regress my age. For 36 years. And so that's a long time to think something and to have something shape your identity and your perception of yourself. So, my homework was to say the new rewrites 100 times a day. And I'm sure I don't say them exactly 100 times a day. And one of her suggestions was to use a dry erase marker and write it on the mirror, my bathroom mirror, which I did. So I see it first thing in the morning when I get up. I see it throughout the day when I go to the bathroom, before I go to bed at night. And it is something that I say continuously to myself. I say it when I'm meditating. I say it when I'm just walking. I say it once I lay in bed at night, when I first wake up in the morning, even before I get up and see it in the mirror. And I do feel that there has been a shift. Something in me this week I saw within this last week, because we did this on August the 23rd. And within this last week, I just felt just a shift. Just, it's not completely changed, and it's not where I'm sure it's gonna um oh, what's the word, where it's going to be dispersed into every aspect of my life. But there is that something, one, by changing the phrases, and two, from her giving me that perspective of looking at that situation completely differently, not criticizing that little girl who made an assumption. She was 8 years old. Of course, at 8, you can't think so rationally and logically. You don't have the experience and the maturity to do so. And to say, instead of criticizing that 8-year-old little girl, look at what it was that she was trying to do, the attributes that she had at that time. And that is definitely, from that incident, and the way now that I can start looking at other incidents and things that have happened, and even current things that happen, not far distant things, more recent things, more in the moment as they happen things, to not just, I've been working on not having that negative voice, because it's so easy. For some reason, that's just how our brain has evolved and how it works, that the negative, we are negatively biased. So that is what we see. That is what we um, focus in on, more so than a positive aspect of something, is the negative. And so that has helped me shift that part of my how I process things when they happen. So um, that I guess is going to be the end of my share for now. I guess I just wanted to share the experience to give just a quick little intro into what I think I want this channel to be and how I want it to look. Right now, no big production. I don't even know how much editing I may go back and do with this video, probably none, because I really just want to do it. It's not about how it looks, it really is just about making the offering and giving this experience that I am having so that it's not just this thing that happens to me. It happens for me and for anyone who may benefit from these experiences that I'm going through, and as I grow and learn through them, sharing the experiences that I have had. I've done a lot of writing of things, and I'll be sharing some different things that I've written, and just different experiences that I've had, and how I feel I've healed from them or am healing from them. So that I had this thing where I was talking with a friend once, and I made me think about how we go through our lives thinking that some things that no one else can understand because no one else has had that experience, and it's only us who have had it. And it's like every experience you have is unique to you, but it is not exclusive to you. It is unique in how you experience it, but it is not something that only you are experiencing. So you don't have to feel as if no one else has done this, has had this happen, has had to go through this. And it makes me think about Brene Brown's work with shame and vulnerability. And I think shame is created, like she says, guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I am bad. And I think shame and is created so much because when things happen to us or we do certain things that we think that I must be the only person who has experienced this. And that's never going to be true. There's 8 billion people on the planet, and we are all a product of learned and conditioned behaviors, through environment, through family, through culture, through just everything that we are exposed to and influenced and informed by. So it may be unique to you, but it will not be exclusive to you. And you don't have to feel as if I think or believe that this thing that happened, no one can understand, that no one can see you and see your experience with compassion and grace and understanding, because that's not true. you know Everyone has so many similar experiences, and they're so ashamed and afraid to share them. They're ashamed because of how they worry about what other people will think of them or about them. And they are scared to be vulnerable for that same reason. And because vulnerability, of course, is associated with weakness and um, just being inadequate and lacking capabilities and everything, all the other things that may be associated. I don't want to keep dragging this on because I can go into a whole big spiel. But so I guess I just want to share it and get it out and just start doing it and not get caught up in the details of it looking a certain way so that then I can't do it. However it looks is how it looks. However it's received is how it's received. It's none of my business how someone receives this. All I can do is offer it with compassion and care and love and kindness and the hope and desire that it does some good to whomever finds their way here. So I hope to share more with you soon. Any comments you have are welcome, and I hope someone finds some comfort and solace in this. Bye.